Friends, welcome into another edition of the Soccer Tejas Podcast. I'm Alex Parra. Thanks to all of you that join us, that are following us, that are sending us your comments, by the way, on the YouTube and the other social media. We appreciate that you make us a little bit part of your lives, and you're an important part of our lives. I say us, our, because it's not only Alex Parra. It's the people here, the experts, the amazing people that are next to me. We'll start on the far side first. Welcome in the one and only Laura Gómez. Laura, good morning, good day, good evening. How are you, Mrs. Gómez?
Mrs. Gómez, yes. I'm doing well. We're recording on a Monday, and Monday did what Monday does best. So, here we are to talk about a little bit of football, a little bit of soccer, and see what we can give you guys information.
Laura, you dress well, you look well, you smell well, at least from what I can tell from here. Tell us about your shirt today. You're always either wearing a jersey or you have a message. What's happening today?
This is I can't show you guys more. The Green Monster, the one from Boston, their MLB team. I know, but I love this shirt. I went to go see the stadium. It's one of the oldest stadiums, and in the league, and it has a lot of history. With my husband and I, we did like a little tour, and it was amazing. And I wasn't gonna buy their jersey, of course, but this shirt I do love because I think it's the only, if I'm not mistaken, the only scoreboard left that is manually changed. So people actually apply to get that job, and there's like a list, like a long list of, people trying to get that job of manually changing the scoreboard. So, and it's huge and it's amazing. So it's a really beautiful stadium. It's very old school.
Traditional. So that's the connection with the shirt. Laura, it's always great to be with you. Thank you for joining us. In the center square today, you see him without his glasses. Apparently, he's been cleared to not have to wear them now. The also one and only Victor Araiza. Mr. Victor Araiza, can I call you that? How are you, Victor?
That's my name. Yeah. I'm great. Always glad here to continue to speak to everybody that watches us. I know our numbers have been moving a little bit up, and certainly the last episode got a little bit of traction there with the topic that we had. So we always appreciate your comments, and of course, whatever time of day you're listening to us or you're watching us on YouTube or any other platform, you can pick which time of day you're watching us from. If you're watching at night, you can go over there with Alex. If you're watching in the sunset or when the sun's coming up, give or take, you can go over there with Laura. Or if you daytime,
midday,
be here with me.
We didn't plan that, but it works, doesn't it? I like that. Yeah. The Soccer Tejas Podcast, any time of the day.
Now we're in Houston. Laura and I are in Houston, and Alex is like in Gotham somewhere.
I'm an unknown locale, exactly. You have
with the
no
black
idea.
suit, it's perfect.
Victor, Laura, I think we maybe before we get into the topic of the different topics related to soccer, starting with that, Victor, where we've been very blessed that people are following us. Friends, we appreciate all your comments. On YouTube, there are comments. How else, Victor, can people get a hold of us? I guess we're, all of us in one way or another, available on the social media, right?
Yeah, X, Facebook, Instagram, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, all of the above. Laura,
we promise we'll get more updated on the TikTok and all these other new.
Look, that's for the young folks.
Older folks.
Hit us up if you guys want to be our intern for just TikTok, because look, I'm gonna tell you right now. That's it. I already have enough. I have Facebook, Twitter, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I've learned new tricks, and what's the other one? Threads. You see, there's like a million things. Like we need to, someday we'll get TikTok. Someday.
There are many. So let's start off with what I believe is something that our nation is looking forward to. Friends, believe it or not, soon we are starting the World Cup, less than a year away. And Victor, Laura, let's talk about the U.S. men's national team. Christian Pulisic coming back when the team, we're seeing some highlights here from the team's loss versus South Korea. Since then, they've bounced back, Victor, and picked up a victory against Japan, 2-0. How do you see the team? Are they under pressure? Does it hurt them not to have to go through qualification? I think, there's something to be said, even in CONCACAF, about getting some meaningful matches under your belt rather than the official ticket to play in the World Cup.
Well, and it's pressure. It's what it is. World Cup qualifying. I think what you're seeing in the final round in CONCACAF, it's almost like it's not even a pressure. It's all for the road team anymore. It's almost a pressure for the team that's at home to live up to the moment. Um, El Salvador, for example, just went over to Guatemala. They got a 1-0 victory, and then they came home to the Cuscatlan and lost to Suriname. Right? Like
Yeah.
maybe it's just the mounting pressure of knowing the dream is within your reach that the nervousness gets you. And yeah, the US doesn't have to go through this. Canada doesn't have to go through this. Mexico doesn't have to go through this. And I think that goes a lot into the motivation. Certainly it does with the Mexican national team because I don't think you can replicate um, competitiveness. I mean, it's as simple as that. And specifically with the US, look, Pochettino came in just last year. He's experimenting. It's his only time to experiment, so I don't blame him for trying to tinker lineups, trying to find different things. Ultimately, you know, once next year rolls around, that's all that matters. You know, that any team could get hot at the right time for a month, and you could have a great run. So I think as fans, I think we wish we'd have a bigger run up to the World Cup, right? Bigger excitement building, more optimism as opposed to some of these results. But again, I think you just kind of let the coaches experiment until next year because you really can't replicate some of that competitiveness. And again, we can get into other territory as far as the attendances, maybe the prices for some of these friendlies. I mean, all that probably contributes.
Victor, the match highlights we're watching now, I believe it was in New Jersey. It was a home match against the South Korean team. That's another angle to the support or maybe lack of support for the U.S. men's national team.
There's empty seats there on our highlights on our screen.
There were. Laura, your take on where the team is, the men's national team, the U.S. men's national team, as we're less than a year away from the World Cup, and in whatever terms you want to discuss, on the field, off the field, support, in the sports radar. It's
drama.
Exactly.
Drama. Oh man. No, I know. There's enough drama going around. No, I think that they're lucky. I think that they're lucky that they had the direct pass. I think that the US team has been under construction and changes here, changes there. I think that they've had a couple of good games and then they turn around and do horrible games. And then it's like sometimes there's like a lack of passion. There's something that's missing, something that for me, something that's not connecting, maybe perhaps with the fans as well. Lack of passion on both ends. I know I've talked to a lot of people that have been, hardcore supporters of the men's U.S. national team, and they're kind of like, meh. They're kind of like, well, I don't know, we'll see what happens. So I think there's kind of like maybe a detachment of players, perhaps of the ones now compared to the ones in the past.
And how do we rectify that, Victor? How does this team, because this is an industry, the U.S. men's national team, the U.S. women's national team under U.S. Soccer, it's a business. It's about selling tickets. It's about getting support. It's about what's coming up in 2026. I don't see the men's national team, Victor, Laura, friends, right now, first of all, other than maybe Pulisic, and we'll talk about Jack McGlynn here shortly, Victor, relative to Houston, but with so much switching around, no consistency as far as a lineup, what does the team need in order to get to the next level of hey, I know the players, I've got his shirt, I understand what the calendar looks like, the schedule. I think the common sports fan in the United States is not well versed on U.S. men's national team. Is that first of all, do you agree with that? And second, can that be a deficiency for the team marketing itself as they go into the World Cup?
Yeah, well, I think part of that is the presentation, the marketing, but not in the way you might think of so much as selling tickets. What you just mentioned, it's a business, and you can feel that with this team. It does feel like a business. It does feel like it almost feels like it's a club, like it's U.S. Soccer FC. and it shouldn't be that way. It should be a case of patriotism. It should be, that's what the World Cup is. Because it's not just a soccer tournament. It's a spectacle of all these countries of culture that clashes with the sport, that or representation on the field of what your country is, what your nationalism is. That's the driving force behind a lot of these countries in South America and Africa, Europe, that I think we're missing here with the United States. And we just talked about, the different um, division that we're living in this country currently.
Right.
But I mean, even these players themselves, I don't hear any of them saying, I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud to represent this team. This is about representing the US of A. It almost feels like it's a club team, right? It's a select team, or however you would categorize it at the youth level. Whenever you go to like an all-star team, and that's not what the U.S. men's national team is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a team representing the United States of America, every fabric of the nation in some form or fashion. And again, a lot of this has been more drama about who's going to be there, what's it going to do for their careers, what does it mean, when it should be, again, rallying around this team. Hey, how do we unite the country? How do we get the support of the people? How do we put all our chips on the table to go out and try to get as close as we can to the FIFA World Cup, to lifting that trophy on home soil? And again, U.S. soccer has a bit of a blame as well, because it almost seems like they're just going through the motions with some of these friendlies. Like, oh, it's the October window coming up. We got to put together 2 games. Who can we schedule? Who can we play? Where are we going to play them? In what city? Not, hey, there's this campaign, a countdown to the World Cup next year. Rally around your team. Meet the stars or the potential or the stories of the players that are vying to complete a lifelong dream, a boyhood dream, to be at the biggest spectacle in sports. We're not hearing any of that. It's just, hey, we're playing in New Jersey against South Korea.
Yeah. Yeah, that's accurate. Laura, your take on what happens next beyond the friendlies they're playing, beyond the winning and losing, the marketing side, the business side. And I think I'm here with Victor. It used to be more passionate, or maybe we've lost a little bit of our innocence in covering the sport. But now this is about, even if it's going to only be a business, you've got to market that business, right? You got to sell it.
I mean, like I mentioned, like I said, I think that there's a passion that's lacking between the players and the connection, the passion with the fans. I mean, I think that a lot of people don't know the players. I think that there's a lack of really getting to know the players, even though that, players have their social media and things like that. I think that even more so with all these connections that, can be so easily connected with one another, there's still a lack of something. I think that there maybe, I want to say the word, a lack of magic. I know we're using the term passion, but I also think that there's a lack of magic. Maybe maybe things will pick up and marketing wise as we're getting closer. I mean, but we're getting really close. We're beyond the 1 year mark.
Yeah.
So, and maybe we're saying this because I'm used to seeing a lot of like in-depth reporting from like the Colombian team. I mean, there's people, they go and interview teachers that they had when they were in 5th grade. So I don't know if I'm used to that kind of reporting
tell
or
those
that kind of
stories, right,
engagement or that kind of marketing. I mean, in Colombia, the players like show up in a yogurt commercial or in a motorcycle commercial, and you're like, what? Like, who he's selling a motorcycle, or, so we see that too. And I've seen it also in Mexico, like, the Mexican players selling like, I don't know, a drink or this and that. And I've seen that. So I don't know if we're used to that as we're seeing in the Latino marketing with soccer. Maybe we're used to that. We want to see that here. I don't know. Because I know the NFL maybe does some little highlights here and there of like the family or like where they grew up or things like that, but not to the extent that I've seen maybe in Colombia.
I see those profiles coming, and I think when 2026 is here there'll be more promotion, certainly within the rights holders' networks, right? And promoting and moving it. Victor, the last word here on the World Cup and the U.S. men's national team. It's way too early, I think, to get a prediction on how the team will do, but I don't think I'm offending anyone or being I'm sure I'll be criticized for this, but the United States is not going to win the World Cup in 2026. They're not a favorite to do so. If they can get past round one, that would be a success. That's where we are in U.S. soccer. I don't think I'm diminishing or hurting anyone's feelings when I say that. But I think you're more of an expert when it comes to men's soccer and the U.S. men's national team. Maybe you're going to tell me, Alex, no, you're crazy. I've calculated the pathway, and the team can hold up that World Cup come summer 2026. Am I wrong?
Well, I think we all like to dream, right? So I'd like to tell you that, yeah, you're wrong. And the U.S. has a shot here why not? If there was ever a time, again, you at least have to sell the dream, right? Why not? Why wouldn't this be the opportunity to at least get to a semifinals and be within 90 minutes of reaching, the championship game for the first time ever? You're playing games in LA, in Seattle. Certainly in Seattle, you'll have, what that tremendous fan base is. Do you think that in LA at SoFi, you're going to have a pro-US crowd? And then, again, just playing on home soil. I would imagine you'd have the country rallying around you for what is the World Cup on your home country. And I just don't see that contagiousness going around, not from the players, not from U.S. soccer. It's almost like, I can't explain it. It should be a crowning moment for the sport
in this
it's
country.
Almost like we're going through the motions, just kind of waiting for May to come around to flip the switch and say, all right, we're World Cup mode, when we should be in World Cup mode now.
Number one, Victor. So look, I'm going to break our rundown. We actually prepare, friends, for the show and actually talk about some topics. But we have not talked about the accessibility. Laura, you on deportesnation.com and through Soccer Tejas were talking about the availability of tickets, the way us mere mortals can or can't buy tickets. What is the term, Laura? You're going to have to help me out here. Dynamic pricing, I believe, is the term that's being used, where the number will fluctuate, the price of a ticket will fluctuate depending on the demand. And I understand that. This is still a business, friends. Alex Parra is not going to be in the building unless I spend thousands of dollars. That's the truth as I see it. So, Victor, to your point, trying to connect my argument here, this is no longer the people's sport. This is now an elite, exclusive approach to marketing soccer in the United States. I can't get past that. I can't cheer for a country where I know that the priority is the price of the tickets and how much everyone's taking home. No nationalism, no pride when it comes to that. Sure, President Trump had Infantino in his office at the White House. They're oogling, I should say, over the trophy. It's all, what advantage, what can I get out of this for me? I don't see any kids today thinking, I'm going to be in that stadium supporting Jack McGlynn. That illusion is gone in my mind. Am I wrong, Victor? We've lost the innocence of what the World Cup was. I remember the World Cup in '94. There was still a bit of innocence to soccer fans seeing something unique. When I got into the Cotton Bowl and watched some of those games, that's gone, because at that time I remember paying $40, $50, $60 for a ticket. Unless I have a lot of money or I'm part of a sponsorship group, I'm not going to be able to live out that dream.
Yeah, I think we still have some of that, just because there's going to be people that will put out whatever they can to be there. Just like we'll see people
but I'm going to interrupt you. Whatever they can means they have the money, and they that's what it's about. It's not accessible to the common soccer fan in this country, is my position.
Yeah, but you shouldn't have to put up your house to be able to go to the World Cup. That would be my thing of saying, not everyone, or maybe what Victor was saying, that people will do anything to get there. So
Well, what I'm
yeah,
saying
they're
in
common
Latin
people
America, we see people all the time selling,
putting their houses
terrenos,
up.
selling their lands.
Well, that's what I'm
Right.
saying.
Selling their
So
kidneys. Yes.
so it is common people, but they're going to the extremes to be able to make it. So it is still common people doing crazy things, maybe things that they shouldn't, to be able to go to a game, which is sad.
Is my position extreme, Victor? I don't want to pop the illusion. I still want kids and families to say, look, I was at the World Cup and I watched the USA beat Mexico. But I can't. It's difficult for me to know that this is a corporate exercise in FIFA making money.
It is
First and foremost.
And it is super commercialized, but it doesn't stop being the World Cup. And again, I think the difference here is the public, the people, the people in the stands is what makes it that magical tournament. That's what gives it that soul. And I don't think, I know we have an expanded version, and it's going to be a different deal coming next year. But I think, again, for a lot of people, I speak certainly from my experience, this will be my first World Cup.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try to take it in as that, and what it means, and again, it just because it's overly commercialized and it's gonna take I don't know how many $1,000, hopefully not millions, to get in there.
Victor,
it still is that crowning a lifetime experience. And again, I think what everybody's hoping for, certainly in other countries, and I think this is what, and I speak for Mexico and the U.S. because they're part of the host, and obviously I have ties to both of them. You just want to see that come from the teams themselves, right?
Yeah.
That excitement, that building to next year. That, listen, we know you guys are putting everything you can to be there. We're gonna put everything we can. We may not win the damn thing, but we're gonna give it our best shot.
Laura, is this like Christmas where it's commercialized? It's not even October. They're selling Christmas already, but there's still a religious element. There's still what it means and what it represents. And many of us lose sight of that because of the commercialism. I think, as I reflect, I think you can find both here, right? You can make it a business and still live, as Victor so eloquently presented, the passion, the nationalism, and maybe a little bit of that hope and dream that your team can be the best in the world.
I mean, I agree with what Victor kind of, also expressed. I think that, as a fan, and as a reporter, I've been able to go to another World Cup. I went to the one in Russia, and it was cheaper than what we're expecting the World Cup to cost now. Just flights are crazy expensive here in the U.S. and in Russia, it was like $30 to go from one city to another, maybe $100. And here, honestly, it's gonna be very hard for you to find any flights from city to city. No matter if it's like you going to Dallas, it's not gonna be $50.
Yeah,
So
but
I think
people
that's
will
an
drive
element.
if they have to.
Yeah, but I'm giving an example of, the cost of different World Cups, or even like, I went to a Copa America in Brazil, and the cost from like one end of Brazil to the other end was like $70. And here, if you're trying to go, from California to New York, it's not going to be, $100.
Just the Uber to the airport is $70.
And that's exactly, and that's another thing too. Like Ubers were cheaper in other World Cups, and here, it's crazy amounts that that people have to pay. So, for me, I still see soccer as something that I think everyone should be able to have access to. And that's why whenever I feel like the tickets in certain countries are trying to put up the tickets more, and the big fans and the supporter area says, well, you're not making it accessible to us, how are we going to continue to help you fill up the stadiums and things like that? So I might be naive in the sense of loving soccer in that way, and I understand it's a business, but if you're going to put it so high, there's going to be a moment that people are going to be like, well, it's not worth it, especially if you have teams that aren't showing the passion, like what Victor said. Maybe I know that Colombia's not going to win. I know that, they're not going to win, but
you're still there supporting.
I don't think they're gonna win, but I expect them to at least give us good games. And if they don't make it to the second phase, at least in the first phase, like knock our boots off. Let's see some.
Yeah.
People are saving, doing all their savings and saving it for 4 years and selling their souls, I guess, to make it there. Like I expect you to show me something. Like what are you doing here? So I think it's a combination of both. Like it would be naive of myself to say soccer is not well-oiled machine of making money. But I also think that enamor or that love that you have for soccer is very maybe childlike, I want to say, but it's pure. I think that there's also that element to it.
We certainly hope so. And friends, what do you think about the upcoming 2026 World Cup? It's upcoming because it's right around the corner. Are you ready? Are you prepared? Have you gotten your tickets? I know that Laura and Victor and our team will work on getting you more information about the World Cup, from tickets to events, and certainly in the Texas region, both in Dallas and Houston, the events associated, and also the many other initiatives that communities and cities and counties are working on as the World Cup approaches. So a good topic, and again, I know something that can be controversial for many who love the sport and maybe don't want to hear of the commercial side. I did want to switch topics finally, believe it or not, Laura and Victor, and talk a little bit about, well, a decision by the MLS that came out just recently. And that decision is about Luis Suárez. Basically, after the shameful behavior at the Leagues Cup final, Victor was talking about Seattle at Lumen Field. Nothing was done, Victor. A slap in the wrist, suspending a few people. How is this even possible, Victor? Talk about business. Forget ethics. Forget anything that matters as far as rules, regulations, even logic. I'm not surprised. All of us predicted that MLS and Inter Miami would do nothing, and that's basically what's happened here. Someone like Suarez basically is rewarded. Hey, take a couple of days off. We'll let everyone know that you're suspended, and that gives you time to get your old body back in shape. So this worked out perfectly for us. And by the way, Victor and Laura, that's after it took him days to even say anything. How is this complicated? How is this difficult? It's business first. They don't want to offend Messi and the rest of his boys, is the way I look at it. And that's where it falls. Another shameful display by a player, by a club, and by MLS. Am I being fair here, Victor? I'll turn to you first.
That's as simple as that. It's not complicated at all. If they wanted to make an example out of Luis Suarez, they would have come down with a big punishment, with a big statement, or at least a statement from the club, a statement from the team. They've ran away from this as much as they can, and we knew they were going to sweep it under the Leagues Cup brand, right, and keep the big suspension to the Leagues Cup games. MLS added 3 there just to kind of have a for show. To kind of say they did something, but they didn't really come out and condemn it, which I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Miami didn't do it either. You can blame the ownership group, David Beckham. Why not address it, right? Why
because
not
they don't want to offend
anyone,
Victor, because they don't want to offend their players.
Exactly. It's as simple as that. But they could have if they wanted to.
They could have if they wanted to. Laura, they did not. Not surprising. Par for the course, and it is what it is, right? And there's no shame, no worry, and hopefully other world events will take the headlines and people will forget about it. I guess that's what the calculation was from the MLS and Inter Miami.
I think that it's dangerous to play favorites because it kind of sets a precedent of what can be done or what players can get away with, or players say, well, I want to rest a couple games. I don't care if I spit on the ref. I don't care if I spit on another, rival's staff member. I'm not saying that players are going to do that, but it kind of does give that step of how far can we go without having, consequences. And some players might try to get away with things. I think that it's a slippery slope. I think it's a dangerous game that the MLS is doing, because if they did it for him, what it might happen again, and they might do less, or I just, yeah.
Yeah, I honestly think MLS wasn't really going to do anything. Like I said, my prediction was they're going to just keep it on
Yeah,
the
we
Leagues
said
Cup,
that.
and Suarez probably isn't going to play Leagues Cup next year because if he retires or if he leaves the club, and if he does stick around, then he'll just miss the tournament, right?
Yeah.
But as part of this 3-game stretch, one of the games Miami's playing is at Seattle. So I think that's the other part of this, where they probably saw the schedule and they're like, oh, wait, we don't need Luis Suarez going back to Seattle and having another scuffle or whatever. So we'll just, you know what, this is how we'll handle it, right? And this is why we'll hand 3 games. And maybe there's a checklist. They say there's a disciplinary committee, but I think maybe they just pull out like a sheet at the office and they're like, all right, let's see, spitting. That's 3 games.
What qualifies?
That's what they gave Herrera, and he didn't even spit at the ref. He just spat near his leg, right?
In the general direction of the referee.
In the general direction. So now we know any
exactly.
spitting, it's 3 games, according to the MLS disciplinary rules. But I think it has to do more with that little aspect of it, that there was that trip to Seattle, and they're just, let's just save Suarez from that trip. Let's give him 3 games, and then, we can go back to business.
I believe that actions have consequences for all of us. Earlier in the podcast, we talked about some grave consequences that we're seeing from extreme political rhetoric, and I'm not returning to that point. Laura, my question to you is, my seeking your comment is, I still think this leaves another stain in Suarez's career. And I think more and more people will refer to this incident as shameful. And if we don't, is that a disservice to the sport? I go back to it. So many little children that somehow believe that this man, and by the way, the culture of Inter Miami, should be held as role models. I see children all over when I travel wearing those colors. What do those colors mean to me? It means a group of spoiled players that are overrated and feel they're untouchable. That's what I see when I look at that pink and those jerseys, and we can't hide it from that. So, Laura, regardless of what the MLS and the club didn't do in disciplining, do you think in the eyes of fans something will linger? There'll be a consequence to Luis Suarez's actions?
There's a level of popularity of each team. So we know that obviously Miami is going to have the most number of fans around the world, not only locally. Maybe a player that, is in the Dynamo or other teams that aren't, at the top of their game in the last couple years, or aren't as well known, don't have that level of compromise with the people. The higher you're paid, perhaps, or the higher that you're known, or the more that you're known, there's going to be, whether you want it or not, you're going to have more eyes on you. You're going to become, whether you want to or not, you're going to be, especially in sports, you're going to become a role model for children. I mean, I've heard players a lot of times and say, well, I don't want to be a role model. Well, guess what, buddy? You are. Like, no matter what you say, yeah, I'm not a role model, I'm an adult, I understand that. But at the end of the day, you are a role model, because these games are popular with children. So it's unfortunate for, Suarez, because he's done several things to put several spots in his own career for many years. This is not the first one. I probably bet that this is not going to be the last one.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
So if you talk to people from South America, they're going to be like, oh, Luis Suarez, the one that bites. So we have that thing going on that you poke and make fun of, but at the same time, you're kind of like, what are the consequences? And more so now, the way that the MLS reacted to what he did, which is spitting on someone, not near someone, which is already not okay. You're spitting on someone, and you're behaving erratic at that moment because you lost. I understand that you're a human being, and sometimes a lot of feelings come out, and that's understandable, but it's a pattern for him. It's been done several times when things don't go his way. So, for Miami not to set things right, knowing already that people are saying it, out loud or saying it behind their back, saying like what you said, that they're spoiled bunch of kids, and oh yeah, Miami, they can get away with anything. Messi not showing up to games, it's a lot of things. I think that people might get sick of it. It might be like, well, why should I pay? They're not going to show up, or have that kind of connotation to that team. And what's going to happen to that team when these big players retire? Are the people going to be loyal to them? Are the people going to want to be associated to a kind of team that doesn't follow the rules or does whatever they want?
Great point. The last word, Victor, to you, and I'll lead you with this. Does this affect business for Inter Miami and the MLS? It may not. So what is the consequence?
Well, we won't know, right? Because I'm saying we won't know if it affects business. I don't know if Suarez jersey sales are gonna all of a sudden stop with the Inter Miami fan base. But look, I think the consequence of this is sadly not much, because it's swept under the rug. The only way I think this resurfaces is if there's a repeat offense soon, or if for some reason these two teams meet in the MLS Cup final, and that's one way that it comes across again. But otherwise, I mean, I think, again, you mentioned it. Suarez has had all these incidents throughout his career. Unfortunately, it's kind of become his MO. And, as long as he scores, people forget.
Maybe it's as simple or as complicated as that. Friends, what do you think? Would you have given a more severe sanction to Luis Suárez and the team? And by the way, other players involved. It wasn't just Suárez. Once you start analyzing the incidents that occurred after that Leagues Cup final. So we'll leave it there for now. But friends, if you have any comments or questions, we ask you to please help us in growing, I guess, the consciousness that we all need when it comes to consequences of actions such as Luis Suárez. We're going to switch gears here and talk a little bit about the Houston Dynamo. Victor, we're showing now highlights of the last game of the Houston Dynamo, a team that's looking to make it into the playoffs, facing off against Colorado. And Victor, it's really down to not much time left. It's time for this team to pick up points, and against Colorado, once again, they couldn't do that.
No, they couldn't. As you look at the table, they're up to what are they now? 33 points. I didn't think they would necessarily need, in the upper 40s. I thought this season, the way it's turning out, they could get in with a maybe lousier season than others. I thought the bottom of the West wasn't as competitive, but it did hurt them to lose at the right game against San Jose. This one with Colorado would have put them right back in there on the playoff line, astonishingly enough, despite the fact that they let a result go, just the other week against the LA Galaxy. So,
right.
Again, this is the magic of the MLS playoff system that allows you to be mediocre and still have a chance to get in. But that's the system. 9 teams get to get in. But just the way they're playing, I don't see the Dynamo getting into the playoffs, because I don't see them stepping out of their own way. They had this game, within their grasp. If they just, again, couldn't get in the lead, couldn't take the 3 points when they needed to, it would have been a direct result that would have brought Colorado down, put them possibly in 9th, or at least put them in position to have more control of their destiny in the closing stretch, and they didn't take it.
Victor, it appears to me when I listen to post-game comments from Ben Olsen, from other players, that they don't have an idea other than, and I'm going to say this respectfully, the cliches of, well, we could have done better. We had moments. We got to keep fighting. It's really repeating itself after every match, regardless of whether points are picked up or not. That, to me, is a sign of a team that, even if they get to the playoffs, it's more luck than calculation or knowing specifically what your team can deliver. Loud, I'll turn to you. 4 matches left: Portland, Nashville, San Diego, and Kansas City. Mathematically, it's there. But back to maybe the reality of things. Getting there is mission accomplished. After that, let's not have illusions of an MLS Cup this year.
I mean, you make me sound like a broken record. I mean, I honestly and I said this, and I'm gonna say it again. I'm just gonna, at this point, I'm gonna record my voice and just play every time you ask me.
Just play it every week.
I'm just gonna play it every week and be like, no, I don't think they make it to playoffs. And if they do, they're not gonna get far. So what's the point of them making it to the playoffs? Laura, is this a missed opportunity for the season? Yeah, it is. I think that this is not enough. Well, what do you think they need to do? Well, they need to win. So I'm just, I'm gonna record this so I can, put it on again, because it's the way that I feel. Honestly, I'd rather them not make it than go out there and not do anything. And for me, a season is not a positive season if they just made it to the playoffs, knowing the history. If this was a team that has, made it to the playoffs for the last 8 seasons, I'd be like, okay, well, we're gonna see an improvement. But to me, for the Houston Dynamo, it's not an improvement of just making it to the playoffs. I think it's like, giving kids just a little lick of the lollipop every season. Like, no, I want the whole lollipop now. Like, what's going on? Like, I want the real deal. So that's my analogy.
Victor, they're teasing us with the possibility of making the playoffs, representing the Western Conference. It's the short-term goal to keep business going. I get it. Your last word on the Dynamo this season, because it's basically wrapping up here in 4 weeks ish, and then even if they make the playoffs, I don't think this is a dream season for the team. It's been another rebuilding season. Is it time to think about what's next for this group?
Well, I think they should be thinking about what's next, regardless of if they get in or not. Because again, I don't think anybody sees them being an MLS Cup contender. They're not a finished product, a polished product. They did whiff there with the departure of Victor Araiza, and they haven't been able to find a suitable replacement. Not even to go into some of the other players that left, but I think just not having that leader on the field. I mean, I think the underlying thing, or the underlying lesson here for the people that want to look at that, is Victor Araiza had more of an impact than many people thought for the much salary that he was making. And we said that on previous podcasts that we had. I think there was an impact that he was making that you could tell. And even in managing out some leads with an Victor Araiza, you could win 1-0. Without an Victor Araiza, it's a little bit more difficult to do that, to manage out some of these games. The Galaxy game is a perfect example of that. So I think it's dangerous that if they make the playoffs, because then sadly what we're going to hear is the pitch line that, well, we have 3 years, that we made the playoffs under, the ownership of Ted Siegel and the operations, the GM Pat Onstad and the coach Ben Olsen, instead of aspiring for more. And I know they've had some bumps on the road this year, some self-inflicted. But again, they didn't retool the way they needed to. I still think there needs to be more investment across the board, not just on the field. And again, I think the biggest question is, what are we aiming for here in Houston? What are we trying to do with this team? Is it just to merely exist? Is it just to say that you made it to the playoffs? Because MLS helps you out with that a little bit. Again, we said 9 teams make it in from each league. So you have to be really awful not to make it in. But again, what's the goal after that? Is this team really trying to make the MLS Cup final? Is this team really trying to win an MLS Cup championship? And again, the World Cup looming, what is this team doing to try to garner some of that interest as well?
Excellent points, Victor. And I think a lot of you fans that follow us and certainly follow the Houston Dash may be feeling exactly the same way. Your thoughts, your comments about now as the season ends for the Houston Dynamo, playoffs, no playoffs, and then, as Victor mentioned, what is the larger plan long-term for this club? Laura, let's switch gears and let's talk a little bit about the Dash. And we start with 2 weeks ago, Houston, the Dash going to San Diego, Fabrice Gautreau's team playing an amazing match. A lot of people were there to celebrate Alex Morgan. The match nationally televised, and we saw the best Houston Dash performance, I believe, most complete game we've had all season. That was 2 weeks ago. But talk about that match first before we talk about the Utah game.
I think it's one of those matches that you're like holding on, and because on the paper, perhaps again, the Dash wasn't the team that many expected to overcome and show what they showed on the field. But it goes very true to what we've mentioned, the grit and the passion that the Dash has that other teams don't have. Why do they have that? Because they've been put into to this position. I mean, it's a team that unfortunately has been rebuilding for what seems as an eternity now. But they've been able to, with scraps, do what they need to do to try to make it to the playoffs. Has their awakening been a little late in the season? Yeah, perhaps. But again, there's a lot of players that are getting to know each other. And again, it's a new coach. It's a lot of new things going on. And in this game, I think that it really showed the potential that the team can reach, like the golden standard of what the Dash can really be. And if only they were that consistently, I would have no doubts that they would make it to the playoffs and, make it quite far.
Laura, the movement of the ball, the command, the attacking the moments, defensively, the sacrifice against San Diego, I think across the board, the best match we've seen all season.
Yes.
And also combining, speaking of combinations, and you're watching some of the highlights here of the first goal, is just a great movement. In combining existing players that have been with the team for a little while, and now the additions of the new players. So plan apparently against San Diego was going perfectly, Victor. And before we switch to Utah, I think we saw the potential that the team has. And literally, as I was watching the national broadcast and listening to them, people were shocked. They said, "This is the Houston Dash?"
They're always shocked. They always downplay the Dash. I mean, it's something that's been done forever.
That's based on the prior seasons. There wasn't much to expect from them. I mean, it's their own doing. I was trying to figure out how much is this the Dash or this good versus San Diego is this bad, right? Especially in this game. Well, because again, it's the one game where we've seen the Dash sort of, really flourish.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take away merit from the previous results, but they've sort of salvaged some results here and there with the late goals. Not necessarily convincing, right? But again, this is a growing operation. It helps to have some stability, like actually having a coach for the whole season, right? Some of the players that we've mentioned that weren't available last year, as great as the story of the soccer moms is, you were missing 3 key players last year as well. That this year you're showing you what it means to have them on the squad. Again, the bringing in of some other pieces, to bolster this squad. I still think we're expecting a little bit more, right, from a Yasmin Ryan or a Messiah Bright. But it's not a question that they provide you a little bit more offense up top. The new forward that obviously had a great game here, and I apologize if I'm messing up her name, Laracy, right? The Canadian.
Yes.
So I mean, she had a good game here. Does that mean she's going to be the stable forward that this team has been lacking?
Missing.
I don't want to throw away the situation with Jane Campbell earlier in the year. Maybe she did need that kick in the butt, where she had a coach come in and bench her for a couple of games and sort of at least give another goalkeeper a look, or just maybe put it out there that any player isn't secured in their spot, right? Because there was a bit of a comfort with some of these players here with the Dash. So I think all of these things coming together. The only concern to me is, are they going to get this together in time to make the playoffs?
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll get to this once, especially with the Utah result. But as good as this run has been, they're still outside the playoff zone. So let's see if they can capitalize, especially on some of these home games, to at least get in. Because I still go back to it. That to me, and in the case of the Dash, it's a different story because they've obviously had a different history. but they have to make the playoffs for this to be a successful season on the sporting side of things. And I know they're growing things, and I know it's a first year head coach. But again, this team, this market needs them to win to get into the playoffs. Otherwise, it's going to be a missed opportunity.
Laura, we switched gears from a tremendous game that ended up 3-0 against San Diego away in California. And then the latest match where Houston, with a few movements here and there, really against the worst team in the league, which is the Royals from Utah, and the team loses 2-0. How can we know what team now to expect in the remaining 6 matches of the season?
I mean, like what you mentioned, San Diego have been like in the top right now. They're in the 5th position, and meanwhile Utah's in the 14th position, and the Dash is right now in the 10th position, and they're tied in very, very tied with North Carolina, and Racing Louisville has 19. So it's very close. There's no room for kind of mistakes, and to go in and unfortunately lose with what you mentioned on paper should have been a very winnable game.
Laura, I'm going to stop you. When we looked at the 3 matches away from home consecutive, I thought the easiest match on paper was Utah, and I thought the most difficult would be San Diego. Maybe, as Victor stated, we've overestimated teams like San Diego and underestimated teams like Utah. But Houston, the Dash, coming into this Utah match, man, what a missed opportunity in so many ways, unfortunately, because mathematically, they're not quite there. I interrupted you, Laura.
No. And when I was saying the points, I looked at the wrong part. So the Dash has 23 points, and right now Louisville, who would be in the playoffs, has 26 points. So it's 3 points. It's still very close. And North Carolina, which is in 9th place, has 25 points. So it's still very, very close. And like you mentioned, when we looked at these away games, we saw games that were like, okay, this one could, it could tie. We could tie with, San Diego. For sure, in my mind, I was like, oh no, we're gonna win with Utah Royals, and then this happens. I do want to mention that there was a lot of changes before this game. So there's some players that are no longer in the Dash, and some players that are new to the Dash. So Natalie Jacob left the Dash. She was traded to Courage, and they gave a new player came in, Malia Barkley, I want to say, with a 75,000 interleague change for the 2026
allocation. Yes.
Allocation. So I don't know if maybe that threw off like the Natalie Jacobs and the Paige Nielsen kind of connection that there was. The team seemed a little off. It's not an excuse that players leave and players come all the time, but I did see a little off.
Victor,
Utah Royals.
Look, the ongoing musical chairs, I'm going to call it that, from the beginning of the season to now, and maybe we'll have to do a deep dive here as we prepare for our broadcast. By the way, we'll have the Spanish language broadcast coming up this Friday, the 19th, Houston at home versus Chicago. But Victor, the musical chairs is an ongoing theme that prior to the Utah game had been seen as genius because of the results. Maybe this is just another adjustment or a bump.
What? Don't throw me in that boat. I was waiting to see still. I'd like the San Diego result because I thought that was one where they really came out of their shell, and okay, this one's different than the other ones.
Agreed.
The other ones you can say maybe they underestimated them, maybe they let their guard down against the Dash. I'm not taking away the merit of scoring in late in games, because it means they're not giving up in these games. But I do think, again, because of the history, that maybe other teams do look down on the Dash. That's part of the reality. That could also be their downfall, which is why the Dash has taken some of these results. The San Diego game, again, they came out, and that was one where that was a big statement win. Could they follow it here with Utah? And then again, maybe this move with Natalie Jacobs, because it certainly had an effect on the fans. From what I saw, the at least the hardcore fans for the Dash, they didn't understand why a long time.
Unexpected. And
it could be with the the new Italian player they just brought in, and maybe they needed to get rid of somebody. Um, I need to study it a little bit more, but it was a little bit out of left field, especially when, again, if you're putting all your marbles on trying to make the playoffs, and why would you
in this
trade away
crucial
a player
moment,
like
no,
that? Yeah, this late in the season, and again, is this a team that's molding itself for the future? Are they trying to do something this year?
or
That's the
dismantle it.
question for us, because I mean, it is for me, because you know, that's a move that was a little weird if you're trying to put your marbles all in on this year, and I mean, then you have the offseason to do whatever you want. Um, and again, they're not going to tell us, we're looking ahead to the next 5 years or whatever. I don't expect them to, because in all the cassette answers that we get, and I'm not singling just a Dash out. I'm talking about just general in pro sports.
Agreed.
There isn't that transparency to say, no, look, we're looking ahead. Maybe that's the case, but I don't. That's why I say they should feel the urgency, or they should have that urgency to make the playoffs this year by hell or high water. Because, and I don't expect Fabrice Coutrat to get fired, or
No.
if they don't make the playoffs. But that could be a bit of a comfort zone too. I mean, I don't know if there is that urgency to say, hey, look, it's playoffs or bust for the team. And maybe some of these moves are looking ahead to that, and it just kind of, it was a down result here, and maybe they'll pick it up in the next ones.
Laura, as we wrap up Dash Talk, 6 matches left. We'll be broadcasting the match versus Chicago, which again, on paper, the penultimate team in the standings looks at home that it could be a victory. Down the road, they wrap up against, I think, the penultimate game of the season against Kansas City. I know they have to play the Current, which is an equipazo. It's right now head and shoulders above everyone else. Laura, is it too early to ask you to predict whether or not the Dash make or don't make the playoffs?
Well, Alex, I mean, if they're doing changes like this that we're not expecting, I don't know what to tell you, because in my little, future cards, it, for sure wasn't Natalie Jacobs to be out. I mean, she's been playing very well. I think the dynamic was doing very well, and I think that there was a ripple effect in this Utah game. Now, will the Dash do what they do best and recalculate and remake what they're doing to be able to get points here at home, knowing that their home games haven't been their best this season? It's going to be an interesting game to see. And then also, Lisa, the Italian Botin, made her debut in this game. We saw a picture we posted on social medias of Sophie Schmidt that she had knee surgery. So she's out for the season. She, had been playing very well during the season. She even, scored. So it's a lot of things that have been changing. They also announced Ramona Backman. She's no longer with the Dash, although she'd been out for maternity leave for a while. But they mutually decided not to, have anything to do with each other. And then there's also a new player who's a defense, Anna, when I mispronounce it, Helfieri, something. I'll eventually learn how to pronounce it.
A lot of moves for what do we say? 6 games left.
Exactly. So that, to me, it's worrisome in several sense. One, that, like what Victor said, they're not trying to go to the playoffs come hell. What is it? The saying?
Hell or high water.
Hell or high water.
Yeah. It's too many H's. I don't know how to talk anymore. So I don't know if it's that, or if we should be worrying about this team not wanting to be in Houston. I already have my little, I did PTSD. I think of the teams wanting to leave,
and they're just not telling us.
Exactly. I mean, when in that interview with the general manager, I asked,
Angela
how's it?
Hucles.
Yeah, Angela Hucles, how does a team stay concentrated? How do the fans keep loyal, or how do you keep gaining fans? And basically it was like, it's business as usual here. We're trying to do the best we can. So the answer was, vague, very professional. But these moves make me a little antsy. So I wouldn't be able to really predict.
Playoffs or no playoffs? She doesn't want to predict yet. Friends,
I don't want to predict.
What do you think? I'm a believer of this team.
Until this last game.
Until the last game. But if they can once again play like they did against San Diego, regardless of the opponent, consistently play like that 2 or 3 games as they wrap up the season, get there, even if it's in the last position for playoffs, either way, if the season ended
How
today,
low the bar is, by the way.
it's an improvement.
It's just make it in the last spot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very, very possible. So anyway, there, friends, what do you think? Will the Dash make it to the playoffs? I wanted to switch gears here, if we could, a little bit, friends, and talk about U.S. soccer. And we talk about soccer at the professional level, the college level. I wanted to focus, and Victor and Laura, I wanted your opinions on U.S. soccer's stance and position when it comes to amateur and youth soccer, and in particular, our treatment of referees and how to prevent referee abuse. It has to do with consequences, the penalties that are associated, handed down by U.S. Soccer for abuse, whether it's physical or, as you're seeing on the screen right now, non-physical, meaning our referees at the youth level, at the amateur level, are mistreated every single weekend. And now U.S. Soccer have given us guidelines when it comes to, as you see there, how many suspensions for the type of treatment, threatening, derogatory language, up to 6 games or 6 to 12 months suspension. So Victor and Laura, I turn to you. Is it about time that U.S. Soccer came out with this type of guideline? And second, we have a crisis on our hands. First of all, lack of referees, lack of quality referees. And it goes, Victor, to the abuse they take from coaches, from players, and from fans. Is this a step in the right direction to rectify that? That's a Victor question first.
Yes. If it's enforced and how it's enforced, I mean, I think that's my only doubt with this. It's great that U.S. Soccer is putting some effort into this. You know, maybe it has to do more, like you said, because it's just been so prevalent more and more in these last few years. I would have thought this kind of thing would have always been in place, and I do think, yeah, that's one of the things we have to fix in the sport. Is this going to be also at the professional level? Because some coaches might be out for the year if that's the case. But look, certainly at the youth level, yeah, we got to weed this out a little bit more. Parents, players, whatever. And again, is it going to be enforced? How is it going to be enforced? I imagine there's got to be a lot of cooperation with, the leagues, the youth clubs. But yeah, perfect if it can be enforced. And I mean, it certainly, this has to be something that's taught at the younger level, because come on, we have to have that respect for the game. Otherwise, then we don't have a game.
Laura, Victor and I, and you and I have been at local parks many times watching matches, and maybe we've become desensitized to the screaming and the F this and F that and pinche ref, and I'm just scratching the surface of what I hear every weekend.
That's what we see at the pro level, like we just mentioned with Suarez. There's some MLS games where we see some of this conduct and nothing gets done.
It carries.
Nothing comes of it.
Right.
At that level.
Zero. My concern, Laura, is how do you enforce something that you hear and see every single weekend aimed at 16, 17, 18-year-old referees that are just doing the best they can to pick up a little extra money to put in their gas tanks? That's how much of a crisis we have. Laura, at least, is this something a step in the right direction? But now, how do you enforce this? Do we start turning people in with cameras everywhere? Do we record everyone's movements? I'm all for cracking down on this because it's a crisis. And parents, Laura, you and I live it, at 6-year-old, 7-year-old kids' games, pretend they're at the World Cup final and that they've got $200,000 betting on that match. It's that bad.
I mean, I think that it is a very important step, especially for, at the youth level. I have been to a lot of games, and my brother played, I played. And one thing is, saying, oh, you're a bad ref, because it's something that comes, sometimes natural, or, turning to the person that's next to you and saying, blah, 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 this ref. But that's something else than you screaming cuss words or derogatory things at the ref, or
constantly
saying
berating.
a braiding. Exactly. There's one thing of you turning around and saying to the person next to you and expressing how you really feel. It's another thing to take that extra step, knowing that you're in a setting where there's minors. And I'm not saying it's okay to be that way also at, at the professional level,
It isn't.
but much less at the minor, where there's minors around you. And I'm a person, I'm expressive. When I go to games, I'm like, that was a bad call, boo, boo. But I cuss a lot, but I just don't like cussing at refs or at people. It is what it is. My
Right.
mom always says, I don't know how you have a sailor mouth, a sailor mouth, but to me, it's just also respect, because
Right.
it's in front of the children too. I think that you also,
Yeah.
again, you have to behave a little bit differently,
I
and also at the pro level, they're just trying to do their jobs.
Yeah. Look, I'll go one more as we go along on the show. I feel that this is not only a beginning. I honestly think, and I would have been on this list as a coach and as a player many years ago. I think you need to identify who is suspended. I think, yes, with following all kinds of steps for appeals. I don't want to use the term publicly shame, but certainly have a list of someone that received a ban for physical or verbal abuse. Let people know. Let the list be public of parents, of coaches, of players, of administrators that have been, for lack of a better term, convicted and proven to have been abusive. That's part of the process. It's that bad, friends. And some of you may disagree completely with us, but I think if you're involved in youth soccer, you know that it's reached a tipping point. So I guess kudos to U.S. Soccer, at least for making a push to make us all aware of the consequences to harassment, intimidation, and abuse, that there will be suspensions and hopefully one day even fines. I'm sure someone will contest that in the courts one day, but at least it's a step in the right direction. So, friends, we've got to wrap up because Loudest agents calling and saying, "Hey, this is overtime," so we can't have that. As we wrap up, first of all, we like to wrap with a segment we call "What's on Our Mind." And Laura, we'll go with you first, if you don't mind. What's on your mind as we hit the middle of September?
It's Hispanic Heritage Month. I'm Hispanic, I'm Latina, so it's always that kind of month in my world, a year round, 24/7. But I think so more so now, just with a lot of the climate that we're living here in the U.S. For people that look like me and the heritage that I have. And I want to invite you guys to really, support us too. We're one of the few, if not the only, media team that covers the NWSL team in Spanish and do it in a consistent manner. And like Alex mentioned, we're going to do a coverage this weekend as well. So, we always appreciate your support, and not only to us, but also to women's soccer.
I like that. And yes, we will be there this upcoming Friday, September 19th, when Houston Dash at Shell Energy Stadium face off against the team from Chicago. Victor, as we wrap up this podcast, what's on your mind, sir?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you to put that footage of the Dash game against Utah again, if you can, so we can show our listeners here what's on. Let me tell you what's on my mind. What's grinding my gears a little bit here. We always talk about the support for women's soccer, right? Trying to get more support all around. I do think certainly we have a good product here, something to build on. But man, this makes me sad. This is depressing for me, seeing no stands empty out in Utah. And it came to my mind because sometimes you'll have things pop up on your feed, right? Your algorithm. And, I saw something come up where Salt Lake had a sellout, another sellout for the men's team just the night before. And, unless I'm mistaken, the Royals are under the same ownership. I've always heard of what RSL has done, what Real Salt Lake has done marketing wise, to increase their sellouts, to make it a constant thing. And I just wonder where that is for the women. Just in the sense of putting that effort in there. And if the demand's not there, then is the answer to just put them in a smaller stadium, something where it makes it a more intimate setting, basically where the
Make the
Monarchs
demand.
play, the MLS next pro team, as long as you have the same dimensions, I don't think it's anything different because I don't know what kind of atmosphere this is for a pro game for to make. And granted, the team won, so obviously maybe it's not hurting them as much. But these settings, right, especially in a league that tries to appear big time, I'd like to see more of an effort to grow the game, to get more people out to the stands. I don't know if lowering ticket prices is an answer. I'm not going to get into all that thing because I know everybody's going to, everybody has their take, especially in corporate, if that devalues the product. But make it more accessible, make it more, I don't know, rally behind these girls. If you have to make this, a more appealing game to at least watch on TV with more people in the stands, a better atmosphere. Because I can't imagine that Utah doesn't have the soccer public. It certainly have for the men's team.
I don't think any of us would disagree, Victor, about the need to promote the women's sport more, support the women's sport more, and I think we all have to do our part. I also.
But it starts with the team. It starts with the team,
yes,
the people that own the clubs, and putting that investment into it, into the marketing team, into the promotion, into the coverage. It starts there, and then that's how it grows outward. I just think, again, when you've had success with the men's team, I don't know why. I mean, otherwise, why'd you bring the team back?
Yeah.
Why'd you bring the Royals back? And if you're not going to put a full-on effort into it.
So there you have it. That's what's on Victor Araiza's mind as we wrap up the podcast. And friends, what's on my mind? I think it's a continuation of what we just discussed relative to the referees at the youth level. We don't have enough qualified referees. We don't have enough referees that stay in the game too long. And it's because mainly of us, we as players, as coaches, as fans, as family members, we berate and think it's okay. We abuse and think it's okay to do that to referees, regardless of the age or ability. Referees are going to make mistakes. They're going to be wrong. We have to live with that. But here's my challenge, and this is what I want to talk about today, okay? Any of you that complain at the youth level about a missed call, I challenge you to get certified and do it yourselves. My life changed after years of complaining when I had an epiphany and told myself, you know what? I want to give something back to the game. I went through the process of getting certified as a referee. The highest level of refereeing that I had was at the high school level, and it was tough. It was physically and mentally demanding, and the abuse is what drove me away from continuing to do it. So any of you that complain, I want you to think about it from their perspective, from the referee's point of view. Often, and I'll say this, Laura and Victor, because you know this, referees will work 4, 5, 6 games in one day consecutively to pick up $30-$40. What do you expect them to be? How do you expect them to react when they're into game 3 or 4 in Houston in 90-degree weather? They're not running full out. They're going to miss offsides calls. They're going to make mistakes. But that is the system that we have created. That system has to change. If not soon, get ready when we'll be playing games without referees because nobody needs the abuse. So that's what's on my mind, and I hope we can change it for the better. I hope we can make things reasonable when it comes to the problem, the crisis we have with referees. So there you have it. From my perspective, Victor, Laura, that's what I've got. I'll take my little pills to calm down, and we can get on with the rest of our day. Laura, as we wrap up, a final word. What are you looking forward to before our next podcast?
The Dash game again. I want to invite you guys to check us out. We're gonna have, I think we're gonna have video. What I was told by my
we
jefe.
will. Yes.
So it's gonna be not only with Alex, Daniela Rodriguez, and myself as a sideline reporter in Spanish. So check us out, and again, support the Houston Dash in their
Push
battle
to the playoffs.
To make it to the playoffs.
There you go. And on Noche Latina, right?
Exactamente, Noche Latina.
I'm very proud of that. Victor, as we wrap up, what are you looking forward to, sir?
Obviously, some of the games coming up this weekend, if I'm not mistaken, and I was looking here, yeah. Wednesday, Austin FC's got a big game. I believe semifinals of the U.S. Open Cup. So we'll keep an eye on that. Trying to keep they just came off a 2-0 loss, I believe, up there in against Dallas. Houston, by the way, and I think we mentioned this, but if not, I'll reiterate, won the Copa Tejas. So also that trophy will be coming down here for a game coming up. So we'll keep an eye on all the Texas teams coming up here this weekend, especially Austin playing for their first cup. So we'll see how it goes for them.
Victor, always great to have you part of the show. Thank you, sir, for all you do. Laura, same thing. Thank you for being a part of this. And at the end of the day, friends, thank all of you for following us, for putting up with us, for criticizing us. It's okay. By the way, we leave, I think, with the same message we started with. We can disagree on any of these topics, but please, let's do it respectfully, and let's do it in a way where we continue the conversation, so hopefully we can grow. And as Victor said at the beginning of the broadcast, we're all human. We have so much more that unites us and is similar in our lives than separates us. Please give that context. So on behalf of Laura, on behalf of Victor, on behalf of our production staff, I'm Alex Parra. Thank you. And until next time when we meet here, this space we call the Soccer Tejas Podcast.